Okay, we are back for 2026 question 3 on the FRQ CSA exam. So this question here is going to be slightly different. This will deal or be that array list problem that we've been discussing if you are one of my students. But we are given two classes. The first class is going to be a course record class, and it's simply what this is going to do is store information about a student enrolled in a course. So it has a few getter methods, get student ID, and get absences, and this is simply going to return whatever the student ID is and whatever the absence count as well for that particular course is. So that is all this is going to do, but it's going to feed into the actual class that we care about, this attendance class. So the attendance class is going to keep track of two array lists of course record objects, so course record being the one that we just took a look at. This is going to signify the students enrolled in a history course and the students enrolled in a math course. So they are two array lists that are both private, history list and math list. And we are going to be creating one method only, called more history than math absences. It is a mouthful, but this is what we're going to be doing. At a high level, if we kind of walk through this example, so this is going to be extremely helpful. We are going to be writing a method, and this method is going to return the number of students who are enrolled in both the history course and the math course, but have more absences in the history course than the math course. So this has two parts to it. And it gives us an example. We have a history list and a math list. And you'll notice that the example first says that there are 4 student IDs that are found in both, so they have an overlap. And then once those 4 students have been found in both, we then decide which students from that shared list have more absences in the history course than they do in the math course. And in this case, we only have 2. And so we are going to essentially return 2 back. So this is kind of 2 parts. We first need to find which students are in both lists. And then from there, we need to find which students have more absences in the history course. And that's going to give us our final answer. So a few things. The post condition is that we can't change either of these lists. The precondition is that no student ID will appear multiple times in a history list, so they will be unique between lists, and no student ID will appear multiple times in a math list. And then the other caveat is that neither one contains no element, so we don't have to do any checking there. We can assume that they are all instantiated properly. So let's take a look at what that method will look like together. Okay, so I kind of already wrote this class out. It's stubbed out, so these are the instance variables here. We've initialized them. This is not required, but it's required because I have the driver down that we're going to use to test this here in a second. But this is going to be the method that we're creating. So the first thing is that we need a variable to kind of keep track of the number of absences. This is going to be essentially the final answer that we're going to be returning back. So I'm just going to declare that at the top, called num absences. And we'll just essentially set that equal to 0. So this is going to be, like I said, the final thing that we're going to be returning once we've figured all of that out. So from here, there are a few different ways to do it. Typically, if you are familiar with like data structures, which is going to be kind of outside the scope of this class, a very straightforward way would be to essentially do something like either a map or a set and go through that. We do not have that at our disposal as part of this course, so we're going to be solving this with just some loops and what we here have learned. So first thing that we'll do is loop through, right? We need to loop through one of those lists. In this case, we are going to loop through the history list. So history list, this will be this array list here. That's going to signify essentially this size here, right? So, and then we're going to increment by 1. So the big thing to remember is that array list is the size method in order to get the length. Once we've done that, what I will go ahead and do is with this course record, so we can assume this is created, we will just create something here, and we're going to pull out that individual element. So this is just a way so I don't have to keep writing this. It's typically a little bit easier. It's not required. From here, we now need to loop through, right, the math list. So very similar, we are going to do the same thing. We just need to create a different variable to do so. And then we will do very similar. We will just pull out whatever that math record is, right? So now we have our math list and we have our history list. So from here, we are now going to check the IDs of these. So we can pull out the IDs. Remember, we have a method that was given to us from the course record. So history record dot get student ID will actually give us the ID, and then we can do the same thing for the math ID, right? Math record dot get student ID. So now we have the math records for both, the student ID for both the history and the math. And what we will do is check to see if they are equal to. So what this is going to do, it's going to go through the history list. So at element 1, so if we have a history list that has something like a student A and student B, and then we'll call it actually HA and HB for history. And then we have something for this math list called something like MA and MB. What's going to happen is that we're going to check here, HA, we're going to check it across MA and MB, then we're going to come back and check HB for MA and HB. So if we have any ones that are equal, we will be able to see that here by checking that condition. If history ID equals math ID, because they're strings, we want to make sure that we are using that dot equals method. If this is the case, we have found a course record that belongs in both lists, right? So immediately here, we can then go and check to see, now that we have found a record that exists in both lists, now we can go actually and check to see if that record actually has more absences in the history list than it does in the math list. So quick way to do that is we can say if that history record, right, get absences, if that is greater than the math record dot get absences, right, then we know that we have more history absences and we can actually just update our num absences. And because we only care about the final count, we don't actually need to do anything further from this point. So we're going to keep doing that for the loops. And once these loops conclude, right, the final thing that we need to do is just simply return num absences back. And you'll notice that this uses two loops, essentially looping through one list and checking against the second list to see if there are any shared values between that. Once we have that, we can simply update it, and after we check to see which has more absences. So this is going to be question 3. This one's a little different. If you have never checked against two different lists, then this may have been a little confusing, but hopefully you were able to get this. And I will see you in the next video for the final question 4 for 2D arrays.